What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and it looks like Joe Rogan has kicked the hornet's nest yet again, and it's been pretty interesting to watch. I mean, we're living now, in terms of like the media anyway, in like a post-truth era and a post-fact era where science has become science TM, right? Trust the science. Wow, the science changes constantly. Trust the science. Well, what do you mean by science? Well, we mean whatever the government says, and that changes and also is wrong often and ever fluid. But we'll follow that. And then if you don't follow that, well, then we're going to ban you off your platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And even though it may turn out that you were right, we're not going to reinstate you, because remember, science TM is greater than science. But we're talking about, and again, like, these issues, again, are so minuscule that you have to understand that the reason that they're so big in the media is because they distract everyone. And that, like, the number of, let's say, trans athletes competing in divisions where they shouldn't is like 2 worldwide. The number of like competitive athletes worldwide, I don't know, 1 million, but it's what the media cares about. If they ran like news that was actually important to the general population, they would be popular. People would be interested in what CNN or Fox News had to say, but they focus exclusively, Fox to a lesser extent, but they're just as biased, CNBC, all this crap. They talk about pointless stuff so that it's, it distracts everyone. And then, like, they're so concerned about the narrative that somebody like Joe Rogan can sit around, enjoying a doob and just completely destroy him. And like, I don't mean any personal, like, if Leah Thomas were to watch this video, I don't think it's Leah Thomas's fault. A lot of people say, well, she should just get out of the pool. Well, yeah, but the rule still exists, so the next person will come along and take advantage of the loophole anyway. It's up to the NCAA to have any reasonable sense of responsibility to the female athletes, biologically female athletes, that have competed there, worked their whole lives to get there, to protect them. Feminism isn't even about women anymore. It's long been, women have long been put at the backseat of what modern day feminism is. Modern day feminism now is about everything but biological women. Biological women are basically right there behind straight white males now. I'm not kidding. Like, if you look at what anybody who pronounces themselves or acknowledges themselves as a feminist is talking about, it's never about women's issues. It's about trans stuff. It's about neo pronouns, and it's about all this other stuff. They don't care about women anymore. The whole movement's been co-opted. Joe Rogan declares Leah Thomas's is an attack on women's sports, and it went too far. If your daughters are competing, this is by Brodigan over on louderwithcrowder.com. Joe Rogan isn't new to speaking about biological men competing in women's sports. Ever since Fallon Fox was crushing lady orbital bones, Rogan has had an issue with it. It wasn't until the drama surrounding Leah Thomas did apolitical people in the middle wake up and say, no, this isn't right. Seeing that the number 462 ranked male swimmer, biologically male swimmer, becomes the number 1 female swimmer, number 1 person competing in the female category in America, and stealing opportunities from your biological daughters, I suppose that will do that. The slope finally slipped too far. Rogan explains why letting trans athletes such as Leah Thomas's compete is terrible for the trans movement, because it makes people cynical and less likely to accept trans people and trans rights. Boy, if only somebody you knew who's talking to you right now would have been saying this for years. Months at minimum. It's when you have these, like, I always talk about it. If you watch my videos long enough, I refer to things like the brand, the trans brand, and how it's represented by these lunatics on Twitter that I bet you most trans people would prefer didn't speak for them. Overweight white women, and like just lunatics are it's driven by mostly overweight white women, and then they make the brand toxic. Most people are like me and probably like you, who are a live and let live type of person. Even my more probably religious viewers, you know, they don't want they don't want trans individuals oppressed or erased or any of this stuff. But like we've got to agree on some facts. We've got to agree on some things. And I think it's basically, agreeing that look, there's just too big of an advantage for this. I know it sucks for this one person out of a million worldwide competing, but that's the way it is. You want to earn a scholarship, let's say a school, okay, let me just put this in like practical terms. Meet the woke in the middle. They never want to do this, but let me propose something, okay? If a school wants to make a woke statement and say that we want biological males to be able to compete against biological females, even though the NCAA won't let them, so we're giving this person a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, nonetheless. Great. Fine. Now we can make the argument that now you're taking a scholarship away from somebody else, but maybe that it's just an additional scholarship that they add. Everybody wins, right? This person gets to earn their position in the college. The college can make that woke statement and let free capitalism, capitalism take its place and say, some parents will be like, well, maybe I don't want my kids going to this school. Or some kids who are applying for scholarships will get pissed and go somewhere else. Then that's fine. I have a feeling they won't do that then, will they? But now they get to hide behind the NCAA's loophole and say, oh, well, it's just this loophole. What can we do? We got to let them compete. Rogan says that he now thinks that it's turned into an attack on women's sports. Quote, and the idea that anybody would think that it's fair for someone who was number 462 competing as a man in the nation is number one as a woman a year later, and that's fair? That might be the woke straw that breaks society's camel's back. Okay, the analogy was a bit of a struggle, but you still pick up what I'm throwing down. Rogan went on to say that women are so frustrated, and parents, if your daughters are competing, and they're competing against a trans woman, it's not fair. There's outliers, and then there's biological males. It doesn't end with the NCAA swimming. Leah Thomas competed as a male just a few years ago. The UK cyclist Emily Bridges competed as a bloke last month. And they were going to be let Bridges compete until the girl cyclist threatened to boycott the race. This is how you win, ladies. When Leah Thomas gets up in those blocks to jump into the pool, every woman should just stand back and let her swim. And make them swim it alone. And then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then they do it again. And by the end of the week, the rule will be changed. It's really that simple. Unfortunately, the penalty for being the only person that stays back on the block means that you could have your life destroyed. We have swimmers, Kentucky swimmer who tied with Leah Thomas says majority of women not okay with, quote, the trajectory of female sports. Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines, who tied swimmer Leah Thomas for 5th place in the 200-meter freestyle, says that the majority of females are not okay with their trajectory. Gaines remarks came during an interview on the Unmuted with Marsha podcast hosted by Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. The majority of us female athletes, or females in general, really are not okay with this, and they're not okay with the trajectory of this and how this is going and how it could end up in a few years. Gaines referring to NCAA's unwillingness to change a rule in an effort to protect females' competitive sports. Gaines said she knows several women who feel the same way she does, but they're scared to speak out about transgender females participating in women's sports because of today's culture. They don't want to risk their future. I don't blame them, because these lunatics will ruin their lives. I touched the wall and saw there was a number 5 by my name, indicating I got 5th. I also looked up and saw the number 5 by Leah's name, so in that moment I realized we were tied. It was kind of a flood of emotions. I was extremely happy for the girls above me who conquered what seemed like impossible by beating her. I was really shocked. Gaines walked away from the competition that day without a trophy for her placement, but they gave it to Leah Thomas, though, because, they needed to have that picture. I walked back to get my trophy, and the NCAA official came up to me and said, "Hey, that was a great swim. We only have one fifth place trophy," which I understood. I get how that works, but said, "We're going to have to give it to Leah. Yours will be coming in the mail. Great job." I was taken aback, and I don't think he necessarily expected me to really question it. The Kentucky swimmer told Blackburn that the official explained to her that the trophies were given out in chronological order, but Gaines said that she was left confusing as to how she tied with Thomas. I don't think they handled this properly, and I don't think they were prepared. I looked at him and said, "This is the women's 200-yard freestyle, and Leah won a national title last night. I have worked every day for the past 4 years for this," Gaines said, discussing how significant it was for her and those she was competing against to make it to that point. I don't think a lot of people realize, but only the top 1% of female college athletes ever make it to this meet. That in and of itself is a huge deal, but you have to fight for every point there. And I was frustrated with how it was handled and how they kind of addressed me. Well, you're just a boring old cis female now. And white on top of it. No. This person gets the trophy. A biological male gets a trophy. Joe Rogan is 100% right about how this, will further... It makes people hate this one person's selfishness, Leah Thomas or Thompson, whatever her name is, tarnishes the entire trans community. Like, they get that, right? The brand. Okay? They have every right to compete as long as the NCAA is a bunch of cowards. But you're going to see more boycotts. This is good. Women have to stand up and protect their sports. It's the only way it's going to be saved. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.